The year 2024 marks 30 years of that fateful day of May 1st, 1994, when a certain Williams Formula One car crashed at Imola and claimed the life of whom many still argue to be the greatest talent Formula One has ever seen, Ayrton Senna. Over the years, though, arguably the greatest tribute Senna has ever received is when McLaren, the Formula One team where Senna won all three of his drivers' championships, built a hypercar with a very specific target in mind. And it's not to have the highest top speed or be the most expensive or even the most beautiful. No, it needed to be the fastest road legal production car around any track, anywhere in the world. Full stop. And you know what? They did it. And they named it the McLaren Senna. This year, McLaren put Bruno Senna behind the wheel of this all-conquering hypercar named after his maternal uncle and made a few stops. First at Monaco, where he did a show run just before the Monaco GP, followed by the Donington Park, where the 6-year-old car beat the Ariel Atom 4 by 7 seconds to claim the production car lap record. Now obviously I do not have access to a McLaren Senna or the Donington Park circuit for that matter, but I do have Assetto Corsa at my disposal and this wheel. So I thought to myself, why don't I give that record a chase and see how far I get. In this episode of Breaking Records, my name is Neil, welcome back to Hot Laps. Now as always, I am recording this portion of the video after already having driven the car and set my lap time. You will see the lap after we are done discussing the weather conditions and car setup. But if you'd like to jump right into the onboard of the fastest lap, here's the timestamp, you go watch that. Now the video of the actual lap record, the onboard of the lap itself driven by Bruno Senna, came out on McLaren's YouTube channel, I'll link it in the description by the way, on May 29th, 2024. And judging by the really crude production quality of that video, I mean, I'm not hating on the video editor here. There were things, there were no telemetry, there was no inset of the driver himself driving the car, any other camera angle, nothing. The point is, the lap record attempt itself must have been at most a week before the video came out. That gives us a time frame where we should look at the weather. And we will jump right onto the timeanddate.com, our trusty friend from the previous video. So here we have a time frame of about a week, 22nd May right onto the 28th May. Now the lap appeared to be set at around 4 p.m. How can I say that? Look at the shadow on the start-finish straight. The sun is about 45 degree-ish front left of the car. So here I have Donington Park, the map of Donington Park in Google Maps. And this is obviously aligned directionally with the compass, north, south, east and west, aligned with the top, bottom, right and left of the screen. Here's the start finish straight that we've just seen the car moving along in the, the shadow reference. And since the straight itself is clockwise, slightly away from an imaginary latitude, which will be running from east to west, the sun will also need to be slightly clockwise from what ideally it should be. If you're moving along any latitude really, and you're having a 45 degree shadow, it must be around 3 p.m. I'm just taking a rough time of 4 p.m. For each day, the middle line represents 12 noon and this line represents 6 p.m. So really for a target temperature, you should be looking at roughly an imaginary 2/3 away from that left line, the 12 noon line. The lowest around that 4 p.m. mark is on 27th May when it achieves about 12 degrees. That's a pretty sharp dip, and just before the dip you can see this is about 15 degrees Celsius, dips right onto 12 and just within an hour or so rises back up to 15. This shouldn't happen this late in the day. I can't really tell why this happens, but it's really frustrating. This is the data we have, so this is what we are going with. Clear weather, because again you can see in the video itself it's really sunny weather, sharp shadows, so yeah, a really clear weather. No wind speed whatsoever because we don't have data on that. Track surface, I'm going with slow, 96% of track health, because look, Donington Park is not really a very active circuit. It is pretty active, but it's not an FIA grade 1 circuit, it's grade 2 currently. But from the video it looked like a pretty reasonably well maintained surface, so yeah, it's definitely not dusty or old or anything like that. Green is just, a freshly PF tarmac with no rubbering of the surface, and that's not what we are dealing with here. I'm not ready to believe that it's optimal or even fast. Assetto Corsa offers slow and followed by old, so that's a pretty hefty jump of 7% of track health. Anything in middle, I think I would have gone with that. Anyway, slow it is, I guess. So that's weather and environment conditions taken care of. Let's look at car setup now. So here's our setup. I'll just load that. I've named it Hot Laps. I've got this track just before this video actually. I'll link both the mod to the track and the car in the description. Both are pretty good apart from the tire model of the car. We'll discuss that in a bit. Okay, so Hot Laps, I've already loaded that. Yeah, gears, you can't change them, it's a road car. Here, Hypercar Trofios, I am going with the stock pressures really. I haven't played much, didn't feel the need to. Now, it has many tire options, Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s even, which didn't come with this car at all. The website, the McLaren's official website, states this car, the McLaren Senna, comes with Pirelli P0 Trofeo Rs, factory fit. We don't have that tires in this game, but we have the next best thing, the Hypercar Trofeo tires. Surely they are not really a close representation, but this is the best we could do for this car currently. The other tires are just slicks, so we'll ignore those. Fuel, 70 liters is what I need. I think 15 gets me just to 5 laps, but I'm taking 2 liters of extra, so it doesn't hurt, right? Electronics, I'm going with traction control 2. I think the default was 1 or whatever. I'm going with 2 here. Aero, I've increased the front splitter setting slightly to gain more front grip. I mean, this car really understeers quite heavily and that's uncharacteristic of the actual car, but these sort of slight discrepancies will be present while modding a car for a game. It's not offensive, but it's negotiable if you play with the setup. For example, I've increased the front splitter. I've also played with the alignment to make the front grip better, increase the camber settings somewhat to increase lateral grip at the front. Brake power, I haven't done anything to that. And suspension, anti-roll bar setting 3. Now while that decreases grip slightly, it also gives me more reactivity, so the front really darts into the corner, gives me much sharper turn in. If there was an option to play with the brake bias, I would have done that to make the car turn in slightly faster and go with a slightly softer anti-roll bar setting for mid-corner grip. But you can only play with what you have available, so that's what I did, and I've got pretty good results nonetheless, as you shall now see. Here's the fastest lap. Here we go along the start finish straight and across the line to start the lap. Braking hard for turn 1 now, and here's the thing, you can really use all the curbs you want. Same as Bruno Senna did in his lap actually, because 1, the curbs on this track are really forgiving and flat in the first place, quite unlike tracks like the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And 2, the Senna itself, this car really feels planted over the curbs and rarely loses composure. I mean, make no mistake, this car still has a pretty hard suspension, but it's no new information really as far as McLaren suspension trickery is concerned. They somehow managed to make their cars feel planted on the racetrack and eat up bumps for breakfast at the same time. And it must be said, this mod does a pretty good job of capturing some of that suspension magic of modern McLarens. Now, to address a flaw in something I said earlier, this voiceover is being delivered by a slightly older version of me by a few days, but I'm finally wise enough to see that if an A pillar that's already raked quite heavily backwards casts a shadow of about 45 degrees on the dashboard, it doesn't mean the sun is 45 degrees front left of the car. It means the sun is sitting directly on your left, which puts the time of the actual record lap at about 12 noon to 1 PM, which is alright, because at no point during that time of the day was the temperature ever below 12 degrees on any of those 7 days we looked at. And it's pretty cold actually, you can see the front tire struggling to get up to temperature throughout the lap. But none of that mattered in the end because, yeah, 128.121. Yeah, that is a lot faster than what we are targeting. I think 2.4, just less than that, faster than a target time of 130.5. It may look like an absolute annihilation, and it is, but I blame that on these tires. I mean, in the last video itself, I was running the same tires, the Hypercar Trofeos, and I beat our target record at that time by 2.8 seconds or something. Bruno Senna, while during his lap, was doing 148 miles per hour. That translates to what, 239 kilometers per hour, something like that. And I do 245, maybe 246 kilometers per hour at the same point. So yeah, this is not really much faster or virtually any faster than what Senna was doing, the actual car. Bruno Senna was also braking quite early for turn 1, and maybe that's what it was all up to. He was just taking it easy. Maybe it was just they were not running fresh tires. Maybe it was the same tires from the Monaco run. This car itself, the mod itself, is not really much faster than the actual car. It doesn't even corner, from what I can tell, way faster than the actual car does. So yeah, maybe it was a combination of all those factors I just mentioned. I totally forgot about my today, by the way. The tires being old or suboptimal, maybe. Bruno Senna taking it just easier, maybe. And the Trofeos, the Hypercar Trofeos in the game are just plain on faster and not a real world representation of the Pirelli P0 Trophy Rs, which is not really a maybe, it's a given. But it is what it is. I mean, I can't really complain after beating Bruno Senna by 2.4 seconds over a single lap, but take it with a pinch of salt, because that's not the case, that's not the same thing. But anyway, that's it for today. Share your thoughts about this video down in the comment box below. Also, if you have any other car or track whose record you think I should attempt in a future video, apart from Notch Life records for now, just says something small, bite size, so that I can make a 10 minutes video out of it. Anyway, share those records down in the comments as well, and I shall try to attempt them in a future video. While you're down there, hit like if you liked it, share if you loved it. Up there on the top right corner of your screen is a playlist containing all the other episodes of the Breaking Record series, and down there on your bottom right is just a video of mine that YouTube thinks you should watch. I'll see you there. Until then, hang on. Drive hard, drive safe. Take care.